Okay, perfect. Okay, good morning, everyone. My name is Esther Garcia. I am the coordinator of education initiatives at Unidos Now. Welcome to our 5th community workshop. This community workshop is a part of a series that we have been doing this year to help share more information with our community about post-secondary educational opportunities, and today we'll be talking about financial aid. I'm going to go ahead and get started and share this presentation with you all. We have a lot of information to cover today. If you have questions, feel free to put them in the chat box. This is a webinar format, so it's a little different. You won't be joining via your camera as a meeting, but you can communicate with us via the chat box if you have any questions. We're so excited to have everyone here today. And to get started, I do want to mention there's Spanish interpretation. So if you or a parent or are there and would like to have simultaneous interpretation, we have Lucero Guzman. She is our interpreter today. She is an incredible alumni of the Future Leaders Academy, and she's a huge help and a great interpreter. So I'll give you all a few seconds. So para las personas que están aquí y necesitan interpretación, Lucero Guzmán, que es una alumna de la Academia de Líderes del Futuro, está aquí ayudándonos y interpretando. Si están usando ese feature, si pueden poner en el chat box que pueden escuchar a Lucero, ella está hablando ahora mismo y queremos saber que está trabajando. So if you are listening to Lucero, please put in the chat box. We can hear her so that we can move forward and make sure that the feature is working. We'll give you all a few seconds. Les vamos a dar un poco de segundos. Okay, sí, estoy escuchando bien. Great, okay. So we're gonna move forward throughout the presentation. Again, if you have any questions, you can ask us in our chat box. Okay, awesome. So to start off, we are live on Facebook as well, and so anyone can be joining us from across the world. But I wanted to start off and talk a little bit about Unidos Now, who we are and what we do. Unidos Now is a nonprofit organization based in Manatee and Sarasota counties in Florida. We work to elevate the quality of life of the Latino Hispanic community through education, integration, and civic engagement. We do that through a variety of programs, including programs for elementary school girls, middle school students, high school students. We also have high school clubs. We have parent leadership programs, and we help give FAFSA workshops along with a slew of other things. Our goal is to help the community in our area learn more and just be empowered through education, integration, and civic engagement. We are excited again for you all to join today. And one of the things that we also do is these community workshops. Again, we have a lot of programs, but this is a way that anybody and everyone can learn from Unidos Now. So to start off, I'm going to talk a little bit about what we have been doing in these previous community workshops, and then I'm going to hand it off to Gabby from USF, and I'll do her introduction a little bit later. But previously, again, as I mentioned, this is part of a series of community workshops that we have been doing. We have talked about technical colleges, community colleges. We had great guest speakers from both of those, Manatee Technical College and State College of Florida. We then talked about public universities, University of South Florida, and private universities. Most recently, we had a guest speaker from Emory University, my alma mater, and just talked about the different elements of these schools, how great these schools are, and great options for people interested in continuing their education after high school. Just to briefly recap, public universities, right? We are talking about universities that are funded by the government, tend to be larger range of majors, and then private universities, oh, that's me at Emory, are privately funded, have their own admissions and financial aid criteria, and can be more expensive. But today, we're going to have Gabby talk about, the funding part of it. As we have talked about each of these different types of colleges, we always get questions about money, and so we wanted to talk about it more in depth in one community workshop. But we are excited to have Gabby join us and let us know what we need to know about financial aid. And so Gabby is, a friend of ours at Unidos Now. She works at the University of South Florida. And she today is going to talk about financial aid extensively. She has a lot of great information. I really suggest you take down some notes. And we're going to have a question and answer session at the end. So if you have any questions, write them down so that at the end we can ask Gabby. But Gabby, you can go ahead, get started, introduce yourself a little bit further, and just let me know when you need to move on to the next slide.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that introduction. As Esther said, my name is Gabriela Vega. I work for the University of South Florida for many years, and basically in the Office of Financial Aid in Tampa a couple of years, and then down at the Sarasota campus for another year or a couple of years as well. So today we're just going to discuss in general financial aid and what it takes to receive it, what type of financial aid you can receive, who you can contact to get more information about this. There's so many resources out there, but we're always here at any university to assist you. Let's get started with our first slide here. And so we're going to talk about different things. So we're going to talk about what is available, how do you apply, what can you expect after you apply. We're going to talk about Florida Bright Futures because that's something that's big for the state of Florida. Florida prepaid, other aid, and then completing the FAFSA also is very important, and and we provide a lot of assistance with that as well. So let's get started. What's available when you actually submit a FAFSA application? And FAFSA stands for Free Application for Federal Student Aid. And so that's the application that all students from all of the United States submit to the federal government to request assistance for financial aid. And so it's only one application that you will have to submit for different types of financial aid. And I'm going to explain in a minute what type of financial aid you're applying for. So we have several things that you will be applying for. You can go to the next one. And it's going to be in different sections. It's going to be divided. So when you submit an application for financial aid, you're actually applying for different things. You're applying for something that's called merit-based. For the most part, merit-based, they're based on academics, on a specific talent. Some kind of scholarships also require you to have some kind of SAT scores and a certain GPA. So those are the merit-based scholarships. And some merit-based scholarships do require the FAFSA, others do not. And then we have the need-based financial aid. Need-based financial aid requires you to have a FAFSA on file. And that includes your grants. When you see the word grant, it means free or gift aid, okay? So don't get that confused with a loan, because a loan, you always have to pay it back. So grant is free. So if you want to see a lot of grants on your application, you want to submit a FAFSA as by meet deadlines. So you're being considered for federal work study as well, and that's need-based, and subsidized loans. which I'm also going to speak about in detail later on. And then there's not need-based aid, and those are some of the loans that the federal government also offers to subsidize your education. Unsubsidized loans and Parent Plus loans, and we're going to discuss that further on my presentation. You can go to the next one. So financial need, a lot of your financial need is determined by what you submit on your FAFSA, okay? Your FAFSA is going to ask you for, there's about 110 questions on the FAFSA. And most of them are going to be easy. They're going to be, okay, what's your name? What's your social security number? What's your date of birth? But they're also going to ask you and your parents, you know, how much did you make this year? How much taxes did you pay? And then they put all that together and they come up with it's called expected family contribution. And so what determines your need is we take the cost of attendance, and the cost of attendance is how much overall is going to cost you to go to a school in the United States, okay? So cost of attendance is also going to be equal to budget. So if we talk about a budget and we talk about cost of attendance, it's going to be the same thing. And the reason I'm explaining this is because a lot of students get confused with what is the cost of attendance and what is a budget. A budget is just the cost of attendance for you to attend a certain school, okay? So then we take the cost of attendance, the expected family contribution, which is what the FAFSA determines that your parents are able to contribute to your education, and they subtract that from the cost of attendance and they come out with a financial need. The financial need is what the financial aid office has to try to meet for you, okay? You can go to the next one. And so I'm going to explain the cost now. Here's the cost to go to school, to go to college, to go to any technical school. And that's what it's called, the cost of college. So there's direct and indirect costs to attend, your college, your university, your technical school. And the direct costs are always going to be your tuition and fees, your books and supplies, your room and board. But your indirect costs are also going to be other things like personal expenses and transportation. So those two, they're just letting you know that there's direct costs and there's indirect costs. And all of that is actually part of the cost of attendance that is included in your budget. Does that mean that you are responsible for everything? If you live at home, you are not responsible for anything. You're only responsible for your tuition and fees and books and supplies. But yes, how are you going to get to college? Well, you're going to need a car, right? So you're going to need some kind of transportation. That's what they're looking at when they're looking at your direct and indirect costs. If you're going to be living on campus, your room and board is also you're going to be responsible for that as well. So those are the things that are included on the cost of attendance for any college that you want to attend. Next. And so here it is. The expected family contribution is derived from your FAFSA, okay? So it's the amount that a family can reasonably be expected to pay based on the income that the family made. And it stays the same regardless, no matter where you go, which college or university, okay? And so the only thing that changes from university to university is the cost of attendance, because it may cost you more to go to a private school and to go to a public school. So that's what's going to change, the cost of attendance. The expected family contribution never changes. And so the expected family contribution is derived from the FAFSA based on a formula. And it's a federal methodology is what they call it. And you can actually Google that if you wanted to, and it tells you exactly how it's calculated. Because it also includes family members, how many people are going to be in college of that family. So it takes a lot of things into consideration. Next. And so here, let me just show you that your need varies by school and by cost. And that's only because of the cost of the school that you're going to. So as I was saying before, the expected family contribution is subtracted from the cost of attendance, and that's what determines your need. So just your need is always going to vary, and what that means is that If you go to a school where it's cheaper to go to, your need will be smaller. If you go to a more expensive private school or any other school that's more expensive, your need is going to be more. Okay, next. So how do I apply? So this is how you're going to apply, and this is how you're going to assist yourself to get financial aid. And like I said, it's going to be federal aid, it could be institutional aid, it could be state aid. And so we're going to talk about next about, you know, how do I apply for all this financial aid? And there's only one way to apply for federal aid, okay? And it's just to submit your FAFSA application. But before you can submit your FAFSA application, you have to create what is called a federal ID, okay? FSA ID, student ID, to log in to complete your FAFSA. So you go to this website, FSAID and ED at .gov. And that's where you create a FSA ID for yourself, okay? You, the student, have to create your own FSA ID, and your parent, and only one parent needs to create an FSA ID for themselves, okay? So these are two separate IDs, one for the student and one for a parent. And so you need this to be able to actually, when you submit your FAFSA, to electronically sign that FAFSA. And it's the only way you can actually submit the FAFSA electronically is by having an FSA ID created and being able to sign it electronically and submit it to the federal government electronically. And be very, very cautious when you create your FSA ID, because it's going to ask you for your social security number, and it's going to ask you for your date of birth and your name. And those three things have to match exactly how you have on your social security card, okay? So when you be very careful when you create those. And then when you're creating your own FSA ID, it's going to use your own, ask you for your, whatever email you have, whatever personal email you have that you use to receive all types of information. So you're going to create your FSA ID with your own personal email account, as well as a parent. The parent has to create their own separate account, having their own email, their own social security number, and their own date of birth. If a student, if a parent is undocumented, they can still complete the application. When you submit the application, all you have to put in is zeros, all zeros for a social security number on the FAFSA, okay? A parent that is undocumented cannot create an FSA ID to sign the FAFSA electronically. However, there is another way to sign your FAFSA. You can actually print out at the end of the FAFSA. It will give you a choice if you want to sign it electronically, or if you want to print out what is called the certification page. And you print out the certification and you have a parent sign, the parent sign it and mail it in. And the certification page provides you with the address to mail it to, okay? So a parent is undocumented, cannot complete an FSA ID, but they can submit the electronic certification with a signature page and mail it into the federal government, okay? So that's the way we do the FSA ID. So you have to have an FSA ID before you can submit a FAFSA application. Next. And here's how the FAFSA website looks like. If you want to try it out, there is a way that you can go on FAFSAforecaster.gov, and it actually helps you figure out how much you will be getting in the future. And so FAFSA.gov, www.FAFSA.gov, and it allows you, if you're a new user, to complete a new application. If you're a returning user, you can log in as well to continue your application, or from the previous year to log in and do a renewal. You can go ahead and go to the next page. So here, this is the if you don't get anything else from this presentation, is the deadlines. You have to meet deadlines. That's very important. When do I complete my FAFSA? Well, October 1st of every year, you submit a FAFSA to the federal government. You're literally applying like 9 months in advance for to submit a FAFSA. So what you want to do is October 1st of every year, be ready to submit your FAFSA for the following year. And the way it works is a FAFSA is good for 1 year, and it includes the fall, which starts in August, the spring, which starts in the January, and the summer, which starts in May. Okay, so one FAFSA covers 3 semesters, fall, spring, and summer. So if you're currently, let's say you're a senior and you're going to be starting this fall, you're going to submit the 2021 FAFSA application, okay? So if you're able to file your FAFSA, you have a valid ID, your parents have an FSA ID as well, you can actually, when you start completing your FAFSA and you don't have your tax return with you, you can download and use the data retrieval tool from the IRS website to download all your tax information into the FAFSA, okay? It allows you and it will provide you a little way to do that on the FAFSA. It will prompt you once you say, I want to use the IRS data retrieval tool to download your tax information into the FAFSA. That's good for the student, and it's also good for the parent. If the student file, then they can use that as well. Or you can just input your data manually if you have a copy of your tax return. So for 2020 and 2021, the tax return that needed, the information that needed was for 2018. For 2021, 2022, it's going to be the 2019 income information, okay? And I'm going to be able to answer some questions at the end. So if you write down your questions, I'll be able to answer those. You can go ahead. And again, here we talk about the priority deadlines. It's very important that you meet those priority deadlines. And the reason for that is because even if you meet all the requirements to get a certain grant, but you did not meet the deadline, you're not going to get the grant. So priority deadlines are very important. For USF, we have a priority deadline of January 1st. And what that means is that your FAFSA has to be into our office and received by January 1st of every year. Now, other schools may have a different priority deadline. So you want to go ahead and get on their websites, on their financial aid websites, and figure out which, what are their priority deadlines so that you can submit your FAFSA and meet their priority deadline. So you want to go ahead and just research. If you're interested in a school and you want to submit a FAFSA to that school, you can go ahead and look for their priority deadline on their website, and they will include it on their website. You can go ahead. So here's what when we talk about early FAFSA filing, this is important because this is where I'm providing you. Here's, if you're going to start school in the fall of 2020, you needed to submit your 2018 information, okay? For the spring and the summer of 2021 as well, the 2018 information. But for the 21-22 year, it's going to ask you for your 2019 information, income information for you and your parents. So you want to go ahead and have that ready because you're applying, this is a prior year tax return, so you should have a tax return, or you can download it, like I said, from the IRS website. For whatever reason, let's say that you did not keep a copy of your tax return and you're not able to use the IRS data retrieval tool, you can always call the IRS web number or go on the irs.gov, and they can provide you with a copy. It's called a tax return transcript, because this is the document that we require if we're needing to capture or request a tax return from you. We request what is called a tax return transcript from the IRS office. And all you do is get it from the IRS website. You can go to the next one. Thank you. Let's talk about citizenship and FAFSA, because the FAFSA does ask a question about your citizenship. And so if you're a U.S. citizen, you're going to answer your question that way. There's an option to say, yes, I'm a U.S. citizen, or national, or I am a permanent resident, or I'm not, I'm an eligible non-citizen, okay? So what you want, when you answer that question, make sure that if you're a U.S. citizen, you're a U.S. citizen, you answer that way. If you're an eligible non-citizen, which is a permanent resident, if you have a registration card with an I-5-1, a refugee with an I-94, a T non-immigrant visa, and a better immigrant, those are all eligible for federal aid. If you have a question about citizenship, call us, because it can get quite confusing for students, but we can help you answer those questions as well. You can go ahead. Undocumented students, DACA and Dreamers, well, technically you are not eligible for federal aid, but you are maybe eligible for state aid or institutional aid. So you may want to submit the FAFSA as well. You are able to submit a FAFSA to the federal government. Like I said, if you don't have a social security number, you can include 000s for that specific field. So go ahead and submit your FAFSA, because like I said, you may not be eligible for federal aid, but you may be eligible for other scholarships as well. Some private scholarships that may require a FAFSA for you to apply. So you want to go ahead and submit the FAFSA no matter what. If you're able to submit your FAFSA, just because you're not eligible for federal aid does not mean you're not eligible for state in the state you live, or institutional for the school that you're going to be applying. So make sure that when you know you're going to be going to a certain school, go to their financial aid website and search the different scholarships they might have. At USF, I believe we have 1 or 2 scholarships that are open to undocumented students, so you can apply for those as well. But you also need a FAFSA on file for that. So you want to go ahead and submit that FAFSA every year. You can go to the next one. So this is what you want to do. If you want to do some research on, you know, are there any scholarships that are, for me, as a non-documented student, call the Office of Admissions. They will give you that information. The Office of Financial Aid will also provide you with that information. And then again, you know, some students, or most students, will not qualify for Florida Bright Futures if you're an undocumented student. So don't, you know, don't try to meet the criteria if you're not going to be eligible to receive the Florida Bright Futures. Believe it or not, I've had a student who met the criteria for Florida Bright Futures, but they were not able to receive it because they have to be, when you apply to the university for regular admissions, they determine your residency of state, okay? And there are certain documents that you would have to submit to the Office of Admissions to prove your residency. And so that's what determines your in or out of state residency, your undocumented status, sort of, as well. But no matter what, if you have questions and you had doubts about it, just call our office. We're able to assist you with those questions, as well as the admissions office. Go ahead to the next one. And so this is what I want you to keep in mind as well. When you're submitting a FAFSA, pay close attention, because a lot of times there's little errors that students and parents make that will like mess up the entire process for you or delay your financial aid. So you want to go ahead and, when you submit a FAFSA, try to avoid certain errors. And that's basic. You know, I've had students who submitted the wrong social security number on the FAFSA and didn't match their name. So that throws off the whole process. You have to either redo another FAFSA or fix your information with your name and social security number that you have on your social security card. So that was one of the things that I do want to mention about that. The FAFSA IDs, I also see a lot of mistakes with that, because parents create their students FSA ID and they use their own email address, and that creates a lot of problems for them, because then when one or the other tries to log in, they think it's the same person. So you need to make sure that when you create the FSA ID, your parent creates their own on their own, and you, the student, creates your own, okay? Divorced or remarried parents, the mistake with that is that a lot of students say, well, no, my parents are not, you know, my biological parents are not married, so I'm not including my step parents. Well, if your mother married again, you need to include the new parent, okay? So both of them will be included on your FAFSA. And then just other little things like untaxed income and all those. If you have any questions about those things, just give the Office of Financial Aid a call and say, hey, I have a question. I'm filling out the FAFSA and I have this question because I don't understand what they're asking. And we can certainly help you with that as well. Federal income taxes paid. Some students put in taxes for the amount of adjusted gross income or for the wages. So that throws off the calculation. And then the number of household size, the number of people in your household really has to do with the number of people that your parents support in that household, okay? The number of your brothers, your sisters, anybody that your parents support. And then the number of people in college. You know, if you have 2 or 3 people that are in college at that time, include them on the FAFSA as well. You can go. The student dependency status, this is important because it determines if you're going to be independent or dependent. If you're a dependent student, you have to include your parents' information. If you're an independent student, then you don't have to include your parents' information. But most students that are coming out of high school are going to have to include their parents' information. There's quite a few questions that will determine if you're an independent or a dependent student, okay? And this is not IRS dependency, because I had a question yesterday about this actually, who a student says, well, I live on my own and I have my own taxes, but I'm only 21. And so my parents claim me on their tax returns. So what he wanted to know is, if my parents claim me, but I live on my own and have my own taxes, would I still be a dependent student? And the answer is yes. A student, you have to be a dependent student until you turn 24, or you're married, or you have legal dependents that you support more than 50%, or you're a veteran, or you're active duty, if you're homeless. There's other situations that determine your independency or dependency status, and those will be on the FAFSA as questions. So depending on how you answer those questions, they determine your dependency status. You can go to the next one. Okay, so students, the information you provide to the federal government is what they use. The federal regulation states that if you're considered a dependent student, you have to submit the parent information. If the parents refuse to contribute even if your parents refuse to give you that information or anything like that, there is a way that you can still get financial aid, but you will only be eligible to receive unsubsidized loans. And I'm gonna explain what unsubsidized loans in a minute, but you can only receive unsubsidized loans, which are not the best loans to receive. So if a parent refuses to submit the information for taxes, a student can still get financial aid, but they will only be qualifying for unsubsidized loans. And even if your parents, like I said, if a parent does not claim you on their taxes, you're still a dependent student if you don't meet any of the other qualifications. And when students say, I'm self-sufficient, I'm on my own, I pay for my own stuff, that still doesn't make you an independent student if you're not 24 years old. So these are some of the things that, you know, I don't live with my parents, so I make my own funds. I have my own place. Again, if you're not 24 or married, you're going to be dependent on your parents. That's the federal regulation. So if there is a way, and I want to explain it now because there is what is called professional judgment, where student has, if there's a problem in the household, if there's abuse, if there's anything like that, then certainly there is a professional judgment that can be done where the independency can be overwritten for a student to be independent, okay? So that they're not, so that they don't have to provide the parents information. And always talk to your Office of Financial Aid. They can explain that process. Every university, every Office of Financial Aid should have a process for that. You can go ahead. So who is a legal parent? Again, like I said, biological or adoptive parent is going to be your legal parent. So always report both parents, always report both incomes. If they're living together, you're going to provide both parents and both incomes. And so basically, all they're wanting to tell you is that these are the parents that you should include on the FAFSA. If your parent is unmarried, then you don't have to submit the information for the other parent if they're not married. But if they live together, then you do have to include the information. Sometimes students will put on their application, my parents are separated and divorced, and that's fine. But if you include two parents, there's a problem, okay? So that's where the inconsistencies happen. And then you're going to be selected for verification, and then we have to ask you for information. So if you answer it, depending on how you answer the questions on the FAFSA, if you say divorce, separated, then only include one parent on your FAFSA, okay? You can go to the next one. Who is not considered your parent? Well, your grandparents are not considered, legal guardians are not considered, foster parents are not, older brothers or sisters, aunts or uncles are not considered your parents. So unless they adopted you, okay? So if you live with any of those above, then when you file a FAFSA, you can certainly, you know, indicate on there that you're an independent student because you live with grandma or grandpa. And so they are not your parents. So you can put on the FAFSA that, you know, you don't put the parents. And that basically happens when there's no parent, when a parent has passed away, when the parents are incarcerated, mental institutions, whatever the case may be. So the children live with grandparents. So when you file a FAFSA for FAFSA purposes, you're going to be considered an independent student. You can go ahead to the next one. So here's what happens after you submit a FAFSA application. There's several things that will happen. The first thing is that on the FAFSA, you're actually going to include the schools that you're interested in attending, okay? And so the schools are going to receive those FAFSAs and start to process your application and continue to award your financial aid. So the first thing you want to do is submit your FAFSA, submit your application for admissions, okay? A lot of schools will not download your FAFSA if you don't submit an application for admissions. So submit your admissions application, submit your FAFSA. You can actually do them at the same time. You don't have to be done in a separate day or anything. It's two separate applications and you can submit in the same day. So we may request additional information from you once we get your FAFSA. If you're selected for verification, all that means is that the government wants us to verify and clarify that the information you submitted on your FAFSA is correct and it matches your tax return information, okay? So that's also a process. And then once we complete the verification, we award you. We tell you how much money you're getting. And so we call it a package. And so basically what happens is you receive a letter or an email saying, this is what the University of South Florida is offering you to meet your unmet need. And here's the package. And the package may include your grants, your federal Pell Grant, there's the Florida Student Assistance Grant, there is a USF grant, there are student loans. You might also be, applying for scholarships. So the package will also include your scholarships. So that's going to be your award letter. Your package will include all of those awards and the amounts that you're going to be receiving. Okay, for the most part, the award letter is separated in two, for the fall and the spring. We will award you for fall and spring. The summer is separate. Like I said, it's from the same year, but it's separate, but we'll award you separate for summer because not all students attend in the summer. And then you have the rights and responsibilities to complete. And all that says is, okay, we've awarded you, but here are the conditions of these awards. You have to be enrolled. Some of them require that you're enrolled full-time. Some of them just require that you're half-time. So you want to pay attention to those rights and responsibilities and what we call terms and conditions of your package and your financial aid. And some scholarships require you as well to complete a certain amount of credit hours a year. So you want to pay attention to that. Okay, you can go. And this is just like I explained what verification is. And so just a confirmation of the accuracy of the information on your FAFSA. So the federal government selects you sometimes automatically, sometimes randomly, it depends. You can look that up and Google it, but for the most part, they said it's just a random process that they select a certain amount of students to be selected for verification. And then you just have to submit to the Office of Financial Aid. So the Office of Financial Aid at the school that you're attending is the one that is going to request the documents to be submitted to the Office of Financial Aid at the school that you're attending, okay? So the schools are going to be requesting this information from you, and you're going to submit it to the school, not the federal government, okay? So submit your documentation, and literally what we do is we post it on your student portal, and we say, okay, we need this documentation, and then you just upload the information electronically on your student portal. And so you submit the documentation, we complete it, and then we offer you the package, and some of it you have to go online and request, like I said, your tax return if you don't have one. Right now we're accepting regular tax returns because of COVID, but the other way you can get a tax return is by just logging into the IRS website and requesting a tax return transcript. You can go ahead. So evaluating your package, all that means is that you want to sit down with your parents and discuss the award the amount of awards you received. Figure out which ones are loans, figure out which ones are just free aid or grants, which ones are scholarships, which school is offering you more money to go to their school. What is the cost of attendance? Is it realistic for you? Can you afford it if you're going off to college? Or will you be attending a local college where you're not going to have the expense of a dorm, of the food, so that you already live at home so that you don't have to pay, that extra money for housing and meals. So you have to discuss those. So discuss the difference between a loan and a grant. And I'm going to talk about more about that. Understand the terms and conditions that I just explained. And then which scholarships may be renewable or not. And the things that you need to do to receive a scholarship again. Keep a certain GPA, complete a certain number of credit hours, that sort of thing. You can go ahead. Florida Bright Futures. Let's talk a little bit about Florida Bright Futures because a lot of students get confused with Florida Bright Futures. Florida Bright Futures does not require a FAFSA, okay? If all you are interested in receiving is the Florida Bright Futures, you do not have to submit a FAFSA, okay? So just keep that in mind. So you do not have to submit a FAFSA, but all you would be eligible to receive is that Florida Bright Futures if you qualify for it, okay? Okay, you can go ahead. So Florida Bright Futures, and here are the qualifications currently, okay? Your GPAs for academics or medallion. And I'm going to explain the difference in a minute. The academic scholars, 3.5, medallion, 3.0. SAT scores for the medallion have gone up. I believe maybe also for the academic, I'm not positive about that, but it is a little higher, and the ACT score for the medallion actually went down 1 point. But these are the current Florida Bright Futures qualifications. You still have to complete 100%, community service 100 hours for academic scholars and 75 hours for the medallion. The number of credit hours that you complete during high school, they're still the same. They haven't changed. So you're going to pay attention to those as well if you're working towards Bright Futures, what you want to do. Okay. So here's the way Florida academic scholars, okay, so this is the academic scholars, okay, so this is the higher one. This is the one that pays 100% of tuition and $600 for books and supplies, okay, $300 per semester. This one is the one that requires a higher GPA and the higher SAT scores. If you're going to a 4-year, they pay 100%. If you're going to a 2-year, they still pay 100% and the 600. And so if you're going to a private school, it's a little different, but not a lot, but we provided there for a 4-year private college, $211 per credit hour and $300 of educational expenses. And the reason they have those for private schools is because they want to cover what the Florida state rate is, which is a standard rate for all public universities. So that's what they cover for academic scholars. You can go ahead. The Bright Futures, the current for medallion, this is the one that has the lower requirement, and it does pay 75% of your tuition, okay? This does not cover 100%. The medallion covers 75% of your tuition, and it does not include the $600 book voucher. It does not include that. For the 2-year, same 75% tuition, and so that doesn't cover everything. But you might get other financial aid, they might cover that, and that's where the FAFSA comes into place. With the FAFSA, you may get additional financial aid if you file the FAFSA. And then for private schools, there's the amount that they can be used as a standard, $150 per credit hour for 4-year college. Pay attention, right now, Bright Futures is available for summer, but that changes from year to year, okay? So it's a good thing because it was not offered in the summer. So Bright Futures is actually awarded in the summers as well right now. It depends on the legislation, the Florida legislation, if it will be, every summer after this. But right now, it is for the summer. You can go ahead. Florida Prepaid. Florida Prepaid is just a program that your parents purchase for you, okay? So your parents purchased a Florida Prepaid program, or you received it through a scholarship. And there are several programs that the state of Florida offers. The tuition plan just covers your basic cost of classes. If you buy the one that includes a local fee plan, it covers the state required fees. And then there's also other fees associated with the tuition that you pay, which includes differential tuition. You can buy that plan as well. So they're just giving you different options to purchase. I actually purchased the one at the top for my son, tuition plan, which only covers the tuition. A lot of times the fees we would have to pay out of pocket. And the dormitory plan, it will include your dorm if you live on campus. So that's the way that one works. Pretty much Florida Prepaid is just, like I said, a program that your parents purchase for you. And if you enroll at USF, we automatically bill Florida Prepaid because we are actually connected electronically with the state of Florida. So you don't have to tell us that you're in the program. We automatically bill them for your classes that you're enrolled in. A lot of times these Florida prepaid programs do not cover every fee that the universities charge you, okay? So you have to pay attention to that, because find out how much your tuition plan is going to pay, and then there may be something that has to be paid out of pocket, or you have other financial aid to cover that. So check with your school on that. You can go ahead. And here's the website for Florida Bright Futures. Well, actually, no, that's not on here. I'm sorry. So basically on here, the way it works, so let's say that you have Florida Bright Futures and you have Florida Prepaid. When you receive Florida Bright Futures and Florida Prepaid, you're going to be, the financial aid gets dispersed in one lump sum, okay? And the first thing that gets paid is tuition. So whether it comes from Bright Futures or whether it comes from Florida Prepaid, your tuition is going to get paid with whatever gets dispersed first. Basically, with Florida Prepaid, it comes at the end. Florida, the Department of Education from Florida does not release the Florida Prepaid funds till the 3rd or 4th week of classes. So you can receive both, like I said, and you can receive them into your account. And if there's any funds left over, they will be refunded to you, the student, okay? So just understand how that process works for your school that you're attending. At USF, you can get both Bright Futures and Florida Prepaid. They come in, typically Bright Futures pays in first, and then your Florida Prepaid pays at the end. And if everything is already paid for with your Bright Futures and other financial aid, whatever Florida Prepaid comes in, it will be refunded to you. So, if there's any funds left over at the end, it goes to the student. So you get a refund. And there's a process for that as well at the school that you're going to be attending. You can go ahead. Federal Work Study. A lot of students want to know about Federal Work Study. We actually have a Federal Work Study program at USF, and most schools have that, okay? It is just like a regular award. Let's say that you were awarded a Federal Pell Grant, a Florida Student Assistance Grant, a student loan, and Federal Work Study. It'll be an amount on your award letter on your package, and it'll say you've been awarded $500 of Federal Work Study. And what that is, or what that means, is that you can go work for those funds. So you get a job on campus, it's a Federal Work Study job, and they pay you out of those $500 they awarded you. Okay, it is need-based, so you have to file a FAFSA to be awarded Federal Work Study funds. Most schools participate. It is a limited amount of funding, so you want to, again, meet the priority deadline, January 1st. You work on campus. There's some jobs that you actually can do off campus, but it's actually through community service jobs. And there's a program at USF that you can actually look through for jobs for that. So Federal Work Study is just the program that you can actually get the funds for and start working. So basically you work and you get paid from those Federal Work Study funds. Next. Federal direct loans. This is very important for you to know about loans. Loans, like I always tell students, do not accept them if you don't want them. For loans, you have to accept them. And there's two types of loans. There's a subsidized loan and a non-subsidized loan. And they will be awarded to you, okay, as part of your package of your overall awards. But you never have to accept them if you don't need them or you don't want them. You can actually decline them. So if you get grants and scholarships and you don't need the loans, just decline them. You're able to do that. So the subsidized loan is a loan that is need-based, and the government pays the interest for you while you're in school, okay? That is, it's called subsidized. They subsidize it for you so that you don't have to, the loan doesn't earn any interest for you, okay? So it's subsidized. And it doesn't become due until after you graduate. And the same thing for unsub. The only difference is that the unsubsidized loan, the interest starts accruing as soon as you get that loan while you're in school. Okay, so it's just the interest that that accrues under the unsubsidized loan. And you don't want to get loans if you don't have to, okay? So I always recommend, if you don't need them, just decline them, and that'll be fine. And here's just some numbers to give you. You know, freshmen can get up to $3,500 for a year, sophomores $4,500 per year, and then the maximum amount of loans that you can get as an undergraduate dependent, 31, as and as a undergraduate student with the limit of 57,500. And those students are independent students, okay? So here are just some figures that you want to look at, but the most important thing that you want to get from this is a subsidized loan. It's interest-free, and an unsub it's not. And if you ever have to get a loan, you want to go with a subsidized loan, okay? So, and if you have questions about that and you want to know, call before you accept any loans. There will be a lot of paperwork that you have to complete to get a student loan. Go ahead. You can go to Warner. Okay, so here, financial aid and the Office of Financial Aid at USF will start sending out notifications of awards December 2019. That's what we did for this past year. So every year on December is when we send out notifications of awards for incoming freshmen, okay? So you want to go ahead and look for those. If you're being admitted for the fall of 2021, fall of 2021, you look for your award letter. And so we want you to have your award letter and know how much you're getting before you make a decision of where you're going to go to school, okay? Because if you're applying for different schools, you're going to get award letters from all those schools saying, oh, okay, this is what we're offering you. You'll receive that in the mail, by email. And so they provide just the detail and information about how much you're getting, the amounts that you're getting, what type of aid it is. Is it a grant? Is it a loan? Is it a scholarship? So you want to pay attention to those notifications so that you can make a determination of which school you're going to be going to and which one is going to provide you the most free money, what I call gift aid, okay? So check with your school. If you don't receive a award letter, you know, by January or February, you need to be calling them and be checking every day on your portal if you were admitted to that school. You can go ahead. And then, you know, use numbers. We have a calculator on our website that helps you determine or gives you more information about, you know, how much am I getting? How much is it going to cost me to go here? Can I go to this school? You know, will it be okay for me to go there and be able to cover all my expenses? So yeah, we have that on our website. So go ahead and, you know, the Office of Financial Aid, there's a calculator there where you can determine how much it's going to cost you if you live on campus, if you live off campus, if you live with parent. That gives you an idea of how much either you're going to need or how much you're going to be getting based on your income and your parents' income. You can go ahead. And then just remember that the FAFSA is free. It's called Free Application for Federal Student Aid. So do not pay anyone to help you fill it out, or they're saying online they're going to help you fill it out. Do not pay anybody. It's a free application. And again, pay attention to your priority deadlines. Make sure you know them. Make sure you meet them, because if not, you're going to miss out on free money. Everyone qualifies for something, and that means that you could be making $1 million and still qualify for an unsubsidized loan. So basically they want you to submit a FAFSA. You know, when in doubt, just submit the FAFSA. And you can, like I said, the least you can get is an unsub loan. And so every year, please complete the FAFSA. It's not a one-time deal. It's an every year application. So October 1st of every year, you submit your FAFSA application. You can go ahead. And now, you know, we can open it up for questions or answer any questions that you might have. And
Yeah.
thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much, Gabby. This has been extremely helpful. If anybody has questions, you can type them out in the chat box right now.
We have several questions in the chat box, Esther. I don't know if you would like to read them or I read them.
Let me see if we can go back. If you have a previous parent account, do you need to create a new one regarding FAFSA?
No, the parent has already one. That's the one they use for all the students they have in their household.
Thank you. This year, do we submit the 2019 taxes or the 2018 taxes? So the person applying to FAFSA this year when it opens in October 1st of this year, they're going to be using their 2019 taxes, correct?
That is correct because they're applying for the 21-22 academic year.
Okay. Does the FAFSA ask about parents' marital status, and if they are separated, do they ask taxes of both parents?
The answer is no. If they're separated or divorced, you only include the one parent you live with and their information.
Mm-hmm. How many school applications can do? So I'm assuming how many, so generally, how many schools can a student apply to? Is that your question, Greta? ¿Cuándo se aplica para el Bright Future Scholarship? When do you apply to the Bright Future Scholarship and where do you apply for that?
So the scholarship application for Bright Futures becomes available the same day the FAFSA does, October 1st. And if you go to the OSFA, which is the Office of Student Financial Assistance to the state of Florida, Google it, or your high school counselor can provide you with that, but that is actually just Google it. I mean, it's easy. It becomes available October 1st. It's through the state of Florida, OSFA, which is Office of Student Financial Assistance, and you create an account and submit your application there. And also any community service hours you submitted goes to them as well. But I think they have to be submitted first through your high school counselor, and the high school counselor submits the community service hours to the state of Florida.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. Let's see. We have a lot of questions. My son is a U.S. citizen, but both parents are not, and we live outside the U.S. Can he still apply?
Yes, if the student is a U.S. citizen, yes, the student can apply.
Mm-hmm. And for that as well, the students or the parents of the students, right, they just fill in the application with zeros if they don't have a social security number.
Correct.
And then they just print out the final sheet because they can't create an FSA ID. They just print out the signature page, sign it, and then mail it in to FAFSA physically.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
Very good. You got it.
Question. A parent that has a social security number that is not valid for employment can be used to fill out the FAFSA application. Is real number just not valid for employment?
So a lot of yes, a lot is what I'm hearing is a lot of undocumented students or parents, I'm sorry, parent, have a number that the IRS provides so they can file a tax return, but it's not a valid social security number, so they cannot include it on the FAFSA. I would have to put zeros on there.
Yeah, so maybe the tax ID number, that number usually starts with a 9, right? And that one is not a social security number, that's the tax ID number.
Right, she says it's not an ITN number, right? And it's fine, right, because sometimes they still get a social security number that is not a official one.
Okay, yeah, and they still cannot use that one.
Correct.
Okay. My daughter will be going to college fall 2021. Can she do FAFSA now or has to wait till October 2020? Yes, October 1st is when the application.
Correct. On October 1st, she can complete her FAFSA of this year.
Mm-hmm. Estoy separada, no hago taxas, ¿qué puedo hacer? This person they're separated, they don't do taxes, what should they do?
That's fine. There's a lot of, individuals that don't file their taxes, whether they did not work or they whatever, that's fine. The FAFSA has a question on there that says, will I file? Did I file? Or I will not file.
Mm-hmm.
And they can just say, I will not file if they're not filing a tax return.
And they will still qualify for aid?
Yes, for the most part, if they get selected for verification, they just have to explain. That's all.
Okay. If you submit the FAFSA application for fall 2021, does that regard for both semesters which we attend the school?
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
Oh, if you submit the FAFSA app for fall 2021, that's when the student will start. Does that work for both semesters, the fall and the spring?
Yes, the FAFSA for the upcoming year, it is the 2021 and for fall, spring, and summer. So yes.
Yeah, so it extends into the spring 2022 and summer 2022.
For the 21-22 year, yes. They'll.
Si mi hijo va a comenzar la universidad. So the same thing for Lizzie, they're asking when to apply for FAFSA if their student begins fall 2021. The application for the FAFSA opens October 1st, and that's when you will submit your 2019 taxes and use that for the application.
Correct.
Mm-hmm. If my siblings don't live in this country with me, but my parents send them money every month, do I include them in the household size?
Yes. Here's the thing: is I'm thinking that a question that's being asked is the student lives here.
Yeah, the current student lives here, but they have siblings outside of the country, but the parents support those.
All of them.
And,
right. Yeah. Yes.
Include them. Yes.
Yes, include them. Yes.
Okay. When did you say to do the FAFSA? October 1st every year. Yes. October 1st is when it opens and when you can submit the application.
Yep. For the following year. Yes.
Trying to. Okay. Okay, for the person who is EGUI, can you explain your question? Maybe just one question together. I think they're separate ones, and I'm not too sure what the question is being asked. Can you please clarify what is cost of attendance?
Absolutely. So the cost of attendance is how much, it's a standard budget that the school puts together for every student. And that depends on, the amount of it depends on if you live on campus, if you live off campus, or if you live with your parents. And the cost of attendance basically is going to help you determine how much it's going to cost you to go to school. It's a standard budget for all students within those groups. And so it includes the tuition and books. It includes the housing and meal plan if you're going to be staying on campus or living on campus or off campus. If you're living on your own, it includes transportation. It includes personal expenses, that sort of thing. So it is just how much it's going to cost you to go to college or a university. And like I said, for a lot of students that are staying at home, it may be a lot cheaper because they're not going to be responsible for paying the housing or the meals because the parents are already supplying that
and for people, after we are done with the question and answer, I'm actually gonna give a couple examples. So after this, you can stay tuned, and I'm gonna go over a couple example financial aid, like breakdowns of cost of attendance and potential sources of aid. So you want to stay tuned to see that as well. I'm going to do one for a public university in Florida and then a private university as well, so we can see an example of what that looks like. Can a student apply for FAFSA even if they don't know what college, university they want to attend?
You can, but the actual FAFSA has a question on there that says, which schools are you going to be interested in? And the reason for that is because they're going to send that information to those schools. So you have up to 10 or 12 choices to submit on your FAFSA. So even if you're not sure which schools you're going to be attending, you can always put as much as 10 schools on there and they will all receive your FAFSA. If you don't put any school on there, no one will receive it. Okay?
Okay. And so this one is clarifying, I think, the question that was above. I have a social security number card, but it's not valid for employment. And I also have the ITN number. So don't use either for the FAFSA application, correct, right?
Correct.
Okay. Can we create the FSA ID now, or do we have to wait until October as well?
Nope, you can create your FSA ID now.
Great. You all are asking really, really great questions.
Yes.
My grandpa travels to Cuba, stays a couple months, and comes back. However, my parents give him money to give him complete financial support while he's here and while he's over there. Is he included in my household income?
So if that question is going to say, how do you pay more than 50% of their support? If you can answer that question, say yes, then yes, you can include them, okay? But if you cannot answer that question like that, then you could not include it, because the question is very clear. If you support someone more than 50% between this period and this period, then you include them on there.
Yes, absolutely. So we fill out the FAFSA form in October of our senior year. Yes.
Correct.
Correct. When to apply for FAFSA if my daughter will attend university in the fall 2021, 2022, October 1st this year, October 1st, 2020. If a student gets the Bright Futures through academic school, we don't need to apply for FAFSA?
So if that, like I said, if that is the only thing you want to receive, Bright Futures, then you do not have to do the FAFSA. But if you want additional financial aid other than Bright Futures, you would have to submit a FAFSA to be considered for other financial aid.
Yes, we definitely recommend people still fill out the FAFSA, because you can be considered for other scholarships, potentially the Pell Grant, which is supplemental and more money than just Bright Futures. So next question: to the case where the U.S. citizen has both parents undocumented and living outside the U.S., can he still apply for FAFSA even if his parents are not able to provide financial information because we do not declare taxes?
Yes, the student can submit that, yes. The students still have to be included in the household. Typically, if a student is selected for verification for those purposes, we take notarized documents, just indicating their income, where they're at, that sort of thing.
Great questions. I submitted my asylum application, but the government hasn't approved it yet, but I have a social security card and a work permit. Can I still apply for FAFSA even though I don't have my asylum approved?
Unfortunately, no. It has to be approved. That's the way the government states it on the policy.
Yes. So this person has a question. Whenever someone has to fill out an application, do they have to put, like any scholarship application, do they have to put down their social security number? They're just worried about potential stolen identities and stuff, and so
no, actually the only application they will ask you for the social security number, I believe, is the FAFSA. As I know I have not seen any applications that require a social security number. We don't require. Well, let me take that back. Admissions requires a social security number, and the reason we use that is that we have to match your FAFSA to your admissions application, and the way we do it is with the social security number, name, and date of birth. Okay, that's how we can download your FAFSA. So unfortunately for those we use it, but For other scholarships, they should not be requesting your social security number.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
if you're concerned about that, call the agency that's requesting or it has the application and is requesting a social security number and ask them, you know, just kind and said, you know, can you give me some more information of why I have to submit a social security number?
Yeah. And FAFSA is a federal program, right? So it's just kind of confirming your identity. They already have this information.
Exactly, and that's what we actually do. FAFSA actually confirms your identity because they do not only a match with the Social Security Office Administration, they do it with INS, Homeland Security, Veterans Administration. They do all kinds of checks to verify that you are indeed that individual.
So yes, if it's just a random scholarship asking for your social security number, definitely call and ask and because
Correct.
yeah, you always want to verify that. But for FAFSA, especially that it's already a federal application, they have this information from you already.
Correct.
Okay. My dad supports my 2 daughters in Cuba. Do I include them in FAFSA?
Where's the dad live here?
Yes. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question.
That's fine. That's fine. Actually the members of the household that are being supported do not have to live in the same house.
Okay.
So that yes, that is a yes.
Okay. Is there a FAFSA calculator we can use now to have an idea of whether we qualify for based on financial aid?
Yeah, there's called FAFSA Forecaster. The word FAFSA for CASTR at .gov www. So Google FAFSA Forecaster. And you can actually, it's like a FAFSA application. Not every question is on there, but most of them are. And it can give you an idea based on the income that you include on there. It's called FAFSA Forecaster. The word FAFSA, the number 4, and CASTR, I believe, .gov.
Now let's see. I'm a rising sophomore, and what's the best time for me to apply for FAFSA?
So she's a sophomore right now. She's not going to be, she's going to apply next year, 2021, October 2021.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah. It's just your senior year of high school is when you'll be applying.
Correct.
When can we submit applications for the colleges? After October 1st?
No, actually, a lot of the applications for admissions become available before that, I believe. So you need to go on the school that you're trying to apply to, go to the admissions office, and on there they give you deadlines of when you can start submitting your admissions applications.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of them actually have deadlines to be considered for scholarships. So that's another thing. If you're applying for scholarships and want to be considered for like academic scholarships, your admissions applications to these universities have to be early and completed early with all the SAT scores, with all the GPAs submitted to the school so that they can consider you for merit scholarships out of the Office of Admissions.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Next question. Bad credit score from a parent. Is this an issue for a student to apply for scholarships?
No.
Do parents fill FAFSA application or counselor in the school?
The FAFSA?
Yes, FAFSA application.
So the FAFSA is the responsibility of the student and the parent. They can have someone assist them and answer questions if they have questions there. But it's actually, we tell the student to do the typing because it's the student's application. You'd be surprised. Some parents want to submit a FAFSA for the student and they include their information as the student. The parent's information included their information as when they ask them the name, the date of birth, and the social security number, and it doesn't work because she submitted an application for herself and not the student. So this is the student's application and the student should be typing it in with their name, their social security number, and their date of birth.
Yes, absolutely. Question again. So this person saying that the parents live outside of the country, do not financially support their student in here in the country. That student lives with an aunt and uncle, but they are not the legal parent or guardian. Can the student apply for FAFSA without including his parents as his financial supporters?
No, we've had a lot of those situations, and the answer is no. The parents have to be included on the FAFSA. And even if they're not supporting, like I said, it's the same situation that where the student has both parents here and they live here and they work on their own and they're not being supported by the parent, they still have to include the parent. So it's about the same situation. So if the parents live out of the country, they still have to be included on the FAFSA.
Absolutely. Just to clarify, you apply your senior year of high school for FAFSA. Is there a list of recommended accredited colleges? We moved to Florida 3 years ago and we are not familiar with good / I think accredited Florida colleges.
There is, you would have to probably just search on there because SACS is called the Southern Association of Southern Colleges, who accredits all the Southern colleges. I am not, I don't know. There is a list, so I would go to that website. I would just Google it and say, list of all accredited colleges in Florida, and you should get a list of those schools. I know the Office of Admissions has a book with all those schools. You may want to call the Office of Admissions and just ask them for the schools that you're interested in and ask if they're accredited. They can give you that information as well.
Thank you. In the universities, is there someone in financial aid who speaks Spanish? Is it better to call or go in person to ask questions for financial aid?
So there's always one person that speaks Spanish at any university, whether it be in the Office of Financial Aid, the admissions, or just in, that front counter person. So there should be someone. You can always request that. If you call and you say, hey, I need someone to speak Spanish to me, they will find someone to speak Spanish. Like I said, for admissions or financial aid purposes. It depends on the questions that you're asking. For the most part, most questions can be answered over the phone and by email. Right now, because of COVID and everybody's working from home, you're not going to be able to see someone face to face. So email or call the university and we can help you with any question.
Okay, thank you. If a student has a divorced parent and they share custody, how do we apply for FAFSA? With a parent who registers the kid to school, or how does the situation work?
So the way the federal government defines that is provide the information for the parent that provides more than half of your support. If you're living with a parent, you include the parent that you live with and only their information. So that's the definition. It can get very technical. Because a lot of students will say, well, I get 50-50. But if you have to go down to the penny to see who supports you more than 50%, you have to use that parent. And you can actually Google that as well. That's the federal regulation. That's how it's stated. Include the parent that provides more than 50% of your support on the FAFSA.
Great question. Do vocational institutions like Sarasota Technical College accept FAFSA?
If that's a college, yes. If it's a college or university or technical school, yes, they do.
Mm-hmm. Yes, Manatee Technical College as well, community colleges as well, like State College of Florida. Yes,
Yep.
You as well.
And just to mention that on the FAFSA, when it will ask you which schools you want to go to, they have a list on there. So any school that shows up on there, you can send the FAFSA to.
Mm-hmm.
Drop down menu.
Mm-hmm. Are there any other questions? These were a lot of really great questions.
Very good questions.
Very great questions. So let's, I know you said you can, I know you said you can send your FAFSA information to a maximum of 10 universities. What if you want to send it to more schools?
So the way you want to do probably that, you can take someone out that has already received the FAFSA and add the new school that you want to send it to. Because I don't think that you can send it to any more of those. I would say that if some schools have already received it, then you go back and you can go back and make a correction, delete one of those schools and add the other school. The thing about that is that you're not going to be going to 10 schools. You're going to be going to one school if you choose. And so take out maybe other schools that you may be going down the line and say, definitely not that school, and add the one that you want to be considered for.
Absolutely. For the Office of Admission, is there only one? I didn't understand. One what specifically? Each institution has their own Office of Admissions.
Yes.
Okay, I think that answered their question. FAFSA is just for the state that kid lives in or national?
The FAFSA is a national application for the US, okay? So any state of the USA can submit a FAFSA. Puerto Rico, I think there's some islands there. Well, they're territories of the United States of America.
The FAFSA, Bright Futures is just for Florida?
Yes, Bright Futures is only for Florida residents. Florida residents.
So I think they're asking to send the FAFSA page. That's FAFSA.gov, or if you're interested in FAFSA. Yeah, no, these are really great questions. Really appreciate you, Gabby, for spending this time and sharing such great information. I have one final question. What if, let's say, what should people here, start doing to prepare for eventually applying for FAFSA? Let's say their students are middle school or like freshmen in high school. Is there something that they can do to like prepare for this? Maybe stay up to date with their taxes or something?
I think a lot of what it takes to apply it is just to know, become aware, know that there's an application called a FAFSA that you have to submit a year in advance before your child starts college. Do research scholarships. Some scholarships are, believe me, there's not enough students that submit applications for scholarships. So look at your local areas that you live in. Over here we have the the Suncoast Community Foundation. We have the Sarasota Community Foundation. We have the Manatee Foundation. We have the Selby Foundation that offers a ton of scholarships. Start researching those now so that make a list and say, okay, we've applied to Selby already. We applied to Manatee Foundation, those sort of things, because they're all going to have deadlines. There's always deadlines for everything. So if one thing you want to remember is, when is the deadline to apply for the scholarships? When is the deadline to apply for, what is the priority deadline for FAFSA? What is the priority deadline to apply for admissions? So you want to be looking at those things and making a list. There's checklists also. Every school has a checklist on their admissions website that says what to do first, what to do second, what to do third. You can look at those as well to guide you through the process. And don't hesitate to call any office, because even if your child's still in junior, it's in junior high or whatever, they can answer general questions for you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. There's a couple last questions that people have asked. Can you change colleges or add colleges after you submit your FAFSA?
Yes, you can.
Okay. Somebody says their child is in preschool. Can they register them for FAFSA?
No, but you can start a Florida prepaid program because the younger they are, the cheaper those programs are. If you're a Florida resident, you need to look at Florida prepaid because you pay a monthly fee based on how old they are. So if they're a toddler right now, it may be a lot cheaper for you to purchase a Florida prepaid program.
I heard the FAFSA application has a question about the Army and serving in the military. The kids have to answer yes to that question if they don't want to.
The FAFSA has actually I think it's two questions about, are you active duty in the military or are you a veteran of the military? There's two questions on that, and those mostly determine your independency, okay? So this is where you want to see if you want to be independent and not include your parent information and you're a veteran, then answer it yes, because you'll be considered an independent student if you meet the qualifications. If you're active duty, you're going to be independent if you meet those qualifications. You have to answer, well, the government wants you to be precise on answering those questions and truthful, okay?
I think it's also the question about like being a part of the reserves, correct? That is a question that is asked.
Oh, yes, no. If you're reserves, if you're just reserves, you do not answer those questions with yes. And the reason I know that is because my son is reserves, and I've had several instances where students have actually inquired about that. And the answer is no. If you're a reservist in the Army or in any other branch, you do not answer yes to those questions.
Okay.
It is possible, sorry to interrupt, that they're asking about the question also about selective service. You know that there's a question that asks if they are registered for selective service or if they want to be registered.
Yeah, that's
yes.
I forgot.
Yes, that question is very tricky. And all it means for males is at the time that you file your FAFSA, have you registered with the selective service? You can answer no or yes on there. And if you're not, you say no, they will say, can we register when you turn 18 years old? Okay. You can answer no to that, but it's giving you an option. Regardless of how you answer it, in order for you to receive federal financial aid, you have to be registered with the selective service if you're 18 years or older. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was the question. Yeah, is state aid and college aid through FAFSA as well?
Some state, and let me explain this because some state aid, and by that I mean the state of Florida has several grants. One of them being the FSAG, Florida Student Assistance Grant, that requires you to have a FAFSA on file. They also offer other scholarships that do not require a FAFSA, but most of those scholarships on the Florida Department of Education website require you to have a FAFSA application. Like I said, Bright Futures is going to be one of them, but that one does not require a FAFSA.
Mm-hmm.
Everything else does.
Mm-hmm. And also, we just recommend applying for FAFSA because some other external scholarships might ask for the expected family contribution, which is what FAFSA calculates.
Correct.
When should we request the IRS transcript?
You should only request it if you need it. But if you think you're going to need it, you can request it now. You go on the IRS.gov website, it will give you options. You can request it by mail, you can request it by phone, or you can create an account on the IRS website to download your IRS transcript, tax return IRS transcript. So you can do that if you think you're going to need it, yes.
And is there an age limit to apply to FAFSA?
Typically, I've been reading a lot about that, and you can submit a FAFSA, but there's questions in there that will eliminate you from, like, have you graduated from high school? There is a way to submit a FAFSA. Let's say that you're a genius and you're graduating at 15 years old. there is a way to submit a FAFSA that way. But for the most part, it's going to ask you for your date of birth. So it tells you on there. I haven't heard of anybody that's tried to submit one while they're under, if they answer the questions, you know, have you graduated from high school, and they say no, that being a rejected application, because all that could happen is it could be a rejected application, that's all. But you may be able to submit one. I haven't tried.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Gabby, for your time, for your energy, answering all of these really great questions, and giving us such really valuable information. I learned a lot today, even hearing from you, so I really appreciate your support and your partnership, and just for being here with us Saturday morning. Thank you so much for being here. You can feel free to head out if you need to.
Thank you.
I'm going to continue with the presentation.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Gabby. We appreciate you. How can we get in touch with Gabby if we need her?
So this is the number that we have here. This is the Tampa number. Actually, I'm in the Sarasota campus. So let me give you our telephone number there. It's 941-859-4459.
So that was 941-359-4459. Is that correct?
That is correct. And you can just go to our website, sarasota-manatee.usf, and on there, our contact information. You can also email us on there. We have a centralized email account on our website.
Thank you so much, Gabby.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Yeah, you too. And so for those who are still here, I'm going to go very quickly. We have not too much time left, but I want to cover some really important information. So I'm going to run through this as quickly as I can. So, you know, somebody was asking about, you know, cost of attendance. This is an example cost of attendance breakdown, or a budget, as Gabby was mentioning. This is for the University of South Florida, but it's very similar. Like the tuition is the same for all public universities in the state of Florida. And so they're in the public university system, or the state university system of Florida. There are 12 public universities, and so that's including UF, USF, FSU, UCF, and so this is an example breakdown using USF. So again, tuition, books and supplies, housing and food, personal expenses again, and then we have this cost of attendance. That's how much it would cost. For a private university, that might be a lot more. And so this is an example of the cost of attendance for Emory University, my alma mater. And so private universities, their tuition is much higher. Their fees and then just general costs might be much, much higher. But there are ways to actually pay for this, and for some, going to a private university might even be cheaper than going to a public one. So again, for private universities such as Emory University, there is this tool called My Intuition, which is a calculator. If you Google My Intuition, there are a list of like 40 different private schools, prestigious schools, where you can input some of your information, and they give you a breakdown of like what financial aid you might receive for that institution. So I recommend Googling this, looking it up, and you could just answer the questions, and already, even if you're not trying to go to school yet, get an estimate of how much money you might receive in financial aid. There's different types of aid, such as grants, you know, Gabby went over that, different types of scholarships, merit and athletic, loans, subsidized and unsubsidized loans, and then work study. So again, complete the FAFSA. We recommend everyone complete the FAFSA. Just by completing the FAFSA, you might be able to qualify for other scholarships as well, even if you don't qualify for the Pell Grant. It opens October 1st. You apply October 1st of your senior year, and then every year of college afterwards, if you want to reapply for financial aid, you must reapply for FAFSA. And so College Board also has what is called the CSS profile and something called IDOC for undocumented students that are not able to qualify or to apply to FAFSA. There are some institutions such as Emory that are, instead of applying for FAFSA, they are able to determine the estimated family contribution through the CSS profile and through IDOC. Essentially, you answer a lot of the same questions, asking about taxes and household size, and then the IDOC is where you upload your tax documents as well. So for institutions that accept and give financial aid for undocumented students, sometimes they use these two profiles as well instead of FAFSA. So again, Bright Futures, we talked about this extensively. I'm not gonna talk too much about it, but Bright Futures can help cover costs. Scholarships, really important. There are so many different types of scholarships. Gabby mentioned some of these here in the area. We have the Community Foundation of Sarasota. Selby has a really great need-based scholarship. We have the Manatee Education Foundation, the Manatee Community Foundation. You could potentially receive scholarships from these as well. For undocumented students, there are some scholarships that are also available to them. The Dream.us is a really great scholarship. Golden Door Scholars is also another great scholarship that helps pay for most of your tuition for school. Immigrants Rising is kind of like scholarships.com, where there's a list of different scholarships, but this is for specifically immigrant students that do not ask about status, undocumented or documented status at all. So they have a list of tons of scholarships. And then the Hispanic Scholarship Fund also accepts undocumented student applications. So then we go through that information, and again, I'm reminding you all of how much it costs. But with, for example, an Emory financial aid package, through FAFSA, you might receive $6,000, and through local scholarships, you can get up to $7,000. The grants that universities give, such as Emory University, that are need-based, depends on the income and is determined by the EFC. They can give you up to as much money as they want and actually give a lot of need-based aid for lower income students. You also get federal work study and then other potential scholarships. You can have a fully paid tuition for private university, public university as well, potentially. For current college students, if there are anyone tuning in, I also want to remind you, every year you have to reapply for FAFSA. It doesn't just stop when you try to go to college. Every single year, remember to write down the information for your FSA ID for yourself and for your parent. I struggled when I was in undergrad because I had multiple siblings in college at the same time, and we use the same parent information, and so sometimes it just got confusing. We forgot passwords and stuff, so make sure to write that down and remember that every single year that you're applying to college and to financial aid to fill out FAFSA. You don't want to, lose your information and then it becomes a headache. Lanzate is a potential scholarship. I think the application deadline is passed for this year, but this is for students going to universities outside of the state, or specifically if you go to college 200 miles or more away from where you live, and it's with Southwest Airlines, they give you like 4 flights a year, which is really helpful because transportation to and from colleges out of state can be very expensive. So it's something that I would ask you all to consider looking into. The Hispanic Scholarship Fund also gives money and resources not just to high school students applying to college, but current undergrad students as well. So if you're currently in college, you can apply to the Hispanic Scholarship Fund, amidst a ton of other resources. Immigrants Rising is good for undocumented students right now in college. You can look at that. Scholarships.com is another place for you to look as a current college student for scholarships. And so are there any questions so far right now? Does anyone have any questions about the information that I just went through? I went through a lot of the information pretty quickly. It's really important that you begin preparing for the cost of college. I know for many of us, that's the make it or break it of what college we end up going to. For people who their children or themselves are not in their senior year or going into their senior year of high school, it doesn't mean you don't have to think about this. There are a lot of things that are important to stay up to date, making sure that you're filing your taxes so that when you have to apply for FAFSA, that information is there and available. And just keeping up to date with different financial aid policies. I would recommend, if you're looking into different schools, go on their financial aid website. Every university typically has a tab for Office of Financial Aid. Look into that, read about their policies, read about potential things that you could qualify for. Again, there are a lot of, excuse me, different calculators, like My Intuition for some private universities, or the FAFSA Forecaster as well is a good one if you're interested in seeing if you could qualify for the Pell Grant or what your EFC might be, and start looking into what that might look like for you so that you can be prepared when it comes around to college. And so before I continue on with my final announcements, I would like if you all could complete this survey. Again, we are trying, these community workshops that we're doing, we want to make sure that we are giving you good information, that we are being helpful in answering your questions. So if you could take a couple minutes to go to this survey. The survey is in the chat box. Cynthia put it there, the link to it. And if you can answer, it's just a few questions. If you can go ahead and try to answer the questions. If you have completed it, feel free to just say, I'm done in the chat so we can move forward. Greta, I'm glad that we're able to help you. We want to be able to provide information. This whole financial aid is not easy to understand. FAFSA can be very confusing and challenging, and so we're hoping to be able to provide you all with the tools so that you can feel a lot more prepared when it comes to that point. And so, again, remember, October 1st is a really important date to think about when applying to FAFSA. You want to get it in as soon as you can, definitely. Okay, so we got a couple people who said that they were done. I'll give you all 30 more seconds. Okay, perfect. So for others who are thinking, okay, I am interested in Unidos now, like this information was really great, what can I do? One of the great ways you can get involved is high school clubs. Each of these schools, except Venice, it's pending. All of these schools have an Unidos Now high school club that all students in high school are welcome to join. We have several of the officers of those clubs here tuning in today as well. But you can feel free to reach out to me if you need to be connected to the clubs at these schools. These clubs also go through a lot of this information, and not just about financial aid, but all about the college application process. The officers have gone through training this summer, so they're ready and excited to work with students across all of Manatee and Sarasota County this year. And also, if you're just interested in learning more about Unidos Now, we have some incredible programs. You can always reach out to us and go to our website. Cynthia, I know you also had an announcement.
Yes, thank you, Esther. I just wanted to thank, first of all of you for being here today, all the students and our friends and families who have been so attentive learning about financial aid. But I also want to thank especially our community partners, the Barancik Foundation, United Way, Suncoast, and also, of course, USF Sarasota and Manatee for always being so supportive and helping us educate our community.
Thank you. Yes, absolutely. And feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions. Adelvis, if you have more information, questions about the Unidos Now Partnership Club, they work with ALAS at SMA. And so I can work with you and connect you with the right people for that as well. And so if there are no other questions, my final announcements is to follow us on Facebook and Instagram. Go to our website if you need more information. We are always posting about just different resources that maybe we provide, but also other community partners. We are always trying to connect our community with the things that they might need. So again, thank you so much for joining us today. That is all for today. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me and let me know. So yeah, here's my contact information if you have any other questions or need to contact me. Thank you all so much for joining this Saturday.
Thank you. Have a great day.